Hello guys, it's Rob with Tech. Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to show you how to install Nextcloud on openmediavault using the Docker Compose plugin. So what is Nextcloud? Nextcloud is you can essentially host your own cloud. So you can save your files, photos, your calendar, notes, all of that. So I'll just get into the video. So I already have my openmediavault set up. I mean, I do have another video on my channel if you need to set up openmediavault, but I'll just guide you through what my setup is. So in storage, shared folders, I have my data drive, which is right here. So this is where we would be putting our photos, files, and all of that stuff. So it depends if you want to change the path to save it somewhere else, but that's gonna vary from my installation to your installation. But in my case, we're just gonna add it to our data files. Another thing that I have set up on the Compose is if you go to settings, I did set up this app data folder. So we can use this change to compose data path on the Docker Compose file. Now, if you don't know where this is coming from, if you can just go back to storage and then share folders, and you can see that I have my app data in here, and it just basically linked to my data Docker app data. So this is the path that I'm going to use. This would be the absolute path. So I'm just going to use that shortcut. So going back, we need to set up a Macvlan. So there's two ways of setting up the Docker container. Either you can set up the default container runs on port 443. And if you're running openmediavault, you have 443 being used for openmediavault, so that's gonna be a conflict. So one way you can do it is you can just change the port to 4443, and that will let you run it. But I find it easier if in the long run you're gonna run it behind a reverse proxy. I did have a lot of issues trying to get the reverse proxy working, and by using the Macvlan, I had a better success doing it that way. So first of all, we need to create a Macvlan. So if we go here and compose and networks, right now I don't have any. You can only create one Macvlan per interface. So I'll try to explain it the best I can, but I'm just gonna label this. This is the name of your Macvlan or your network. So I'm gonna call this local network because that's essentially what it's gonna be doing. And the driver, I'm gonna do Macvlan. Now this would be the interface that you are using. Now for the subnet, this would be the subnet that you have on your environment. So in my case, it's going to be 10.0.0.0/24. The gateway minus 10.0.0.1. Now for the IP range, whatever you specify in here, that's going to tell the Docker to, whenever you add containers into this particular network, it's going to go ahead and automatically assign an IP address. So that's might conflict with your current, because if you have your router doing DHCP already, this might conflict. So in my case, I have from the first IP 10.0.0.1 available all the way to 10.0.0.100. Like I had set up my router not to assign any addresses on there. So the range that I'm gonna give this is gonna be 10.0.0.48/29. And I think I could better explain this by using the subnet calculator. So if you do like the IP address, this one right here, and then I'm going to do a 4/29 calculate, and that's going to give me usable IP addresses from 10.0.49 all the way to 54. So make sure that this does not interfere or assign addresses on top of your DHCP where your router is assigning. I hope that made sense. So that's how I'm going to leave it. Also, whenever you do calculate this, you might see, like if I were to put 49, and then you look on here, and then you look into the network address, this should be the start of it. So you see how I put 49. So now the 49 4/29, you'll be losing one IP address. So it's better if you just do the 48 or based on the IPs that you're using. So that's why I did this here. So this should create my network. So the local network, I name it like that because it is gonna be physically on your local network. So now that we have that set up, we're just gonna go ahead and go back to files, and I'm gonna do an add, and I'm gonna name this Nextcloud. Description Nextcloud. Now I am gonna provide this compose file on my GitHub, and I'll provide the link, but I already have it ready, and I'll just explain it to you on how I have it. So go ahead and paste this in here. Okay, so first of all, we are using Nextcloud, and the one that I like to use is the Linux server one, right? So you can see that I tagged it a certain version, 28.0.3, and the reason that I didn't use the latest tag is because when I did some testing with the Nextcloud, which is the newer version of this, I think it's 28.0.4 if I'm not mistaken, but that one has issues whenever you try to install apps. So this is the reason why I'm using 28.0.3. Also, make sure that like everything matches, right? In the cases, this is be Nextcloud, and then you can see that the Docker container is important to have Nextcloud. Like make sure these two are matching, and then depends on, this is just gonna tell Docker, right? I mean, this particular container, it cannot start unless this Nextcloud MariaDB Docker container is running. Now the IP address, I am gonna change it because we went ahead and used the 4849. I could use 49 based on the IP subnet, right? Because that was one of my available addresses. You don't have to follow this because, I mean, you can change it to, I don't know, 10.0.0.30, which is not part of this usable host range, and it will still work. But I'm just gonna use 49 for this particular instance. So this is called, I call this Nextcloud network, right? And then this IPv4 underscore address assigns Nextcloud this address, 10.0.0.49. Now the backend network, this is just creating a network specifically for the MariaDB to talk to Nextcloud. So none of the other containers are gonna have access to that network, only Nextcloud. And so that's why I did it like that. Now for your PUID and PGID, you can just do ID and then the username, and it will give you that information. I'll go ahead and put a comment on here and specifying that ID. Now the time zone, just change it to whatever time zone you are on. Now here is where I was talking about the appdata folder. So in this particular case, you can just use this keywords, or you can say your shortcuts, right? Change to compose data path, and then Nextcloud. This is just going to go into that appdata folder, and then it's going to create a Nextcloud folder and create a config folder. Now the second one is where you actually want your stuff saved, like all your files, your photos, and all of that data. I mean, because if you don't want it on the app data, you can just change this to the SRV path, which is like the absolute path. You would have to not use this link if you want to change it elsewhere. All right, so that's it for the Nextcloud container. Now going over to the MariaDB, also, well, this one's Nextcloud-MariaDB. And you can see that the name, my container name, and this is matching, just easier to manage. One thing that you do need to make sure you do right, like if you do change these names, make sure that you change it here on the depend on Nextcloud MariaDB, because that's the way that the Nextcloud container identifies this other one. And also you're gonna need this name when we are setting up the Nextcloud. So here we're using MariaDB 10.11.6. This is also the tagged because it's a database. You don't want to have the latest tag and do a pull and accidentally upgrade it and corrupt your database. Now on this one, on networks, you can see the backend network, and it's just a network. It adds the backend network to MariaDB, and this will be created automatically because it doesn't exist. And you can see that it does have it on Nextcloud. Now the PUID was the same thing when you do the ID and then your username. I also changed this here to match mine. Now here it's important to create something very secure. You can just go into like a password generator and create something very secure, but for this demonstration, I'm going to use it, do something very simple, right? But it's not advised for you to do that. Make sure you do a very complicated or secure password. So here I'm just going to leave it like that, enter secure password, because this would be your root password. So you can access MariaDB with the root account and use this password. So I do advise to put something very secure. Now here, database, this would be the database name that we're going to be used for Nextcloud. It doesn't have to be this, but whatever you put in here, we're going to need it on the other screen that we're going to continue. Now this user was just self-explanatory. It's going to be the user for the database. So whatever you add here on this name and then this user, but this user is the one going to be on that, used on that one. Now for this one, this is going to be the database password. Also really advised for you to use something real secure. Now for this present demonstration, I'm just going to use this one right here. Now again, here I just use the same change to compose data path Nextcloud. So this is just going to put, it's going to create the config, the data, and then it's also going to add a MariaDB in there so I can keep everything together in one container. And then we're using port 3306 for the MariaDB. Now here in the bottom, you have to always label your networks, right? So networks, backend network, and then I just gave it a name. I mean, this name, it can be whatever you want. This is the way I named it. Now this one is important, Nextcloud network, because this is the ones that we used here on Nextcloud. You can see it's highlighted, and it's the one that I gave an IP address. We need to tell it that we need to use local network. Local network is the Macvlan network that we created on the previous step, and then you have to specify external true. That should be it for this file. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it. Now let me go ahead and do a check. Okay, everything looks good. So let me go ahead and run it. This is going to take a little while if you just install it for the first time, because it has to go in there and copy the container image and download it, and then it will get started. All right, so it looks like it just finished. We can see that it's up. Now, if you go to the new tab, so you're going to access it on the IP you specified here. So in my case, it's going to be 10.0.0.49. So I'm just going to do that, 10.0.0.49. And then here we can just do, you're going to have to create your password in here. So whatever username you want to use, I'm just going to use admin, but you can use whatever you want on that. Password, also you can use, let's create a very secure password. I'm just going to create a simple one, but for demonstration purposes. Now here on storage database, you're going to specify MySQL MariaDB. Now here on the database user is basically everything that we specified on here, right? So we said database user is going to be this one right here. Just go ahead and copy it over. My database password, we use this one. And then database name. Again, I do advise a more secure password. Now here, it's important database host, right? So we have to give it the same name they use for the container. So in this case, it was this one, Nextcloud MariaDB. So I'm just going to copy it from here. And then you remember that we used port 3306. Now, if we did everything correct, we should be able to do the install. Remember, secure password, don't use this. All right, so look, it's like it took our information. Now here, it depends on your system that you're using. If you just go ahead and click install recommended apps, it's gonna take a while unless your machine is like real fast. So the thing is that there is a Nextcloud Office that has the built-in coder, and that one takes forever. So what I advise, or what I would do, is you can skip and then you can install everything manually, but without including the code on. Or if you want to test it like that, I mean, you just can do the install recommended apps. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip. And so we see that we already have it installed. Now this is more of an installation video, not so much of the capabilities of Nextcloud, but what I am going to do, I'm going to go ahead and add those apps, the ones that are the recommended ones. So you go to app bundles, you can see here on the hub bundles, if you install this one, this Collabora Office one, this is the one that takes forever. Now, one of the issues, if you use the latest Nextcloud, if you click download and enable, it'll give you that the app causes instability with your server or something like that. So that's why I went to this version. So I'm just going to go ahead and download and enable calendar, contacts, mail, we're just gonna skip this one. Like I said, it's just because it causes slowness, but I mean, you can go ahead and try it and see if it works good for your environment. We are just missing one, which is called notes, and that will be considered the ones that are recommended apps, with the exception of the Office Collaborate. Okay, notes is right here. Now we can go to our dashboard, and you can see that now I populated all these other ones in here. Now, another thing that we do need to look at, and I can help you fix, if you go to administrator settings, you're going to see that we are accessing this via HTTP, which is not advised because it's not encrypted. And then that we don't have the server maintenance window start time is not configured. Now here you can go to documentation. I am gonna help you fix this, but like in the documentation, it can tell you the parameters. Like in my case, I'm using 1, so it's gonna be like from 1 a.m. And on to, I'm not remember exactly the time frame. Now for the database transactional file locking, I'm gonna include some a change that we're gonna do so we can fix that, and that's gonna take the change that I'm gonna do. It will fix the memory cache as well. Now, no default phone region. So each region, I'm in the US, so on my region is gonna be US, but you can just go in documentation and make sure you check on yours. So what we're gonna do to fix those, we're gonna go to SSH into our machine, our Open Media machine. So here is our SSH, and I'm gonna change to to root user. Now you're gonna go into, depending where you have the configuration file. So in this one, it should be under, or I think it will be easier if I just go back to my Open Media Vault and I go to storage, and then you do shared folders, and then here on my app data, which is where I installed, just gonna copy this path and then go back. So if I go here, I can just do this. Now in here, you can do an ls-l, and you can see all the containers that you have in here. So I'm just gonna go into Nextcloud, and then ls, and you can see that we have config, data, and MariaDB. We need to go into the config. So we're gonna do a vim. You can do vim or vi or nano, because if you have the default installation of Open Media Vault, vim is not gonna work. You're gonna have to do apt install vim, just in case if it doesn't work for you. Or you know what, in my case, I don't have it either. So let me see if it works. I mean, I think it's good that I don't have it. Let's see. So www nextcloud, then config, and then config again .php. Let me expand this more. There you go. So that should be the file. So if you have a default install, you see how we say vim command not found. So we do have to do apt install vim, and then we can just do y. I mean, if you can use vi also, like I said, or nano. I just prefer using vim. So if I go here vim, we can see the configuration file for this. Now I'll post this on the description. Well, I'll see if I can add it into the GitHub, but you do have to make these changes if you want to fix those errors. So you're gonna go here to the bottom, then you're gonna do enter, then you're gonna copy and paste this. If you're trying to paste anything into the command line and you see insert visual, it's not gonna let you copy anything. And the way I get around this is we can close this file, and we would have to modify the default file in the USR share vim, and then if you do tab, it's gonna be vim82, then default vim. Yeah, default vim. Now you need to find the one that says the set mouse equals a. It should be somewhere in here. So I'm just gonna do / and then I'm gonna put mouse. So I'm gonna enter, and then you can just do n to search around. So okay, so this one's the one that we need to comment out. So to comment out files in here, we're gonna do I for insert, and we're gonna do a quotation, and that quotation is just a quotation in there in front of it, and that's gonna comment it out. Now we can just do escape :WQ for write quit. Now we do need to reload. So I'm just gonna highlight this again. We do need to reload the SSH. So if you exit out of the SSH and then you go back in there, of course, I mean, you can just go ahead and in your case, you can just SSH with root into the machine. Now that we're here, I'm going to do CD again. And I'm going to specify the whole path. Let me copy it again from over here. So appdata. Right, so now we should just be able to do the Vim again. Yeah, this one right there. Wait, that didn't work because we're in the wrong directory. So let's cd into the nextcloud, and then in here, all right, we can do that right there. So now it should work, the vim config. All right, so we're back here, and I'm gonna put the ones that we need to add on here on the description. So we're gonna go here on the down, and then right here, once you match the cursor with this little symbol, space, and then you're gonna do I. You see how it's insert? Then you're just gonna right click, and that's gonna paste it. So you see how we don't have the insert visual no more. So this would fix the default phone region. So in my case, I'm in the US, so this is why I was saying that if you're in a different part in the world, but then you would have to specify this one. Now this memory cache.local, this clears the memory error that it was giving us. Now on this one, the main Windows start one, this just tells it that I think it's from 1 a.m. in the morning and on, if I'm not mistaken. But you can, before you change this setting, you can go into the website and click documentation so you can read up on those parameters. Now we can just do exit, and then we're going to do : write quit, so WQ. The other change that we have to do is limiting the Nextcloud from being accessed on HTTP. So we need to forward it to HTTPS. So I'm also going to include that in the description. So if we go into Vim and then we check on config nginx and then site-confs and then default, you're going to open up this file. You're going to see here that we have listen to port 80 and port 80. So what we'd have to do is we can just hashtag this. So that would put it, that's a hashtag, like the pound sign. And then we're going to go ahead and add a new block on there, on top of that. So we go up here and do just enter. We can just right click again. And this is just going to tell us that anytime that it hits on port 80, it's going to redirect to HTTPS. Another thing that we need to add is the HSTS so we can match. There's a warning. Let me see if it's still on here. You have, well, you don't see the error here because, oh, you know what? I'll leave it out and then we can fix it. Okay, so now we can just quit, then : write quit. Now we need to restart the container. So we go back to services, compose files, then we do down, and then we do up after it finishes going down. Right, then we're going to do up. You're going to see that right now we're accessing this on non-secure, so it's a HTTP. So now if you see that if we do 10.0.0.49 or the IP address of yours, you're going to see that it's going to go to an HTTPS now connection. So I was going to forward. There you go. Now the last thing that you're going to see in here is that it doesn't have the secure transport security. this right here. We can easily fix this by going to back to PuTTY, and we can vim the same file, the default config, and I'll paste that on the description as well. You can just go into the second block and you can add it right here. So insert, enter, and then I'll put it on the same with the same aligned. Right click and now exit. That's a colon WQ. Now that should be it for it to be working. So as far as the errors have, so you can do down, and then you can do up again. Now we refresh this page, because once it's right now it's still starting up. You're gonna see that now all the security checks are gone. This is the only one that is missing. It's just that the email configuration if you want to set up the SMTP. But that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, this was just a setup video, and I don't know if I dragged the video a lot, but I tried to do some explaining. Now this setup is ready for a reverse proxy, so you can just go ahead and go, like I have nginx proxy manager, and you can just use this HTTPS with the IP address, and like it'll work with the reverse proxy. If you want to see a video on that, I mean, I could go ahead and show you, and just leave it in the comments, or for any questions or concerns, please let me know. But that will be it, guys. Thank you very much if you stick around to the end of the video.